What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to avoid the traps of self-help. So I was on YouTube the other day, and somebody that I subscribe to who has a channel kind of similar to mine, they share a lot of self-help content and they get quite personal with it too. They shared a video of themselves holding a self-help book that is regarding finances, one that I happen to really enjoy, over a garbage can. And the title of the video was "Self-Help is Ruining Your Life," or something along those lines. Now, my first instinct when I saw this is, okay, what is this like clickbaity bullshit? Like this, I completely disagreed right away. Self-help is ruining your life. But it worked. It got me to click on the video and watch what he had to say because I found that notion so outrageous. And a lot of what he had to say was, I found it to be pretty valuable, but I think there was a lot of things that he missed the mark on. And then what caught my attention next was on the recommended videos beside that one, there was a whole bunch of videos similar to it about how self-help is ruining you and how self-help is a trap, and a lot of stuff like this, kind of just bashing the whole idea of self-help. And that in itself is a trap. And what I want you to recognize, and what I would hope they can recognize one day too, is that even that message that they're sharing is grounded in self-help. So to dismiss the entire field of self-help, or to call it a trap in such a big way, is in itself a trap, because their intentions are grounded in trying to give people tools to help themselves by sharing that message. Now, one common theme in all of these videos where they were dismissing self-help altogether was they were talking about one specific thing that can be a trap in self-help, but it's not grounds for dismissing self-help altogether. And that one common thing that they were talking about is a little bit of a trap where you beat yourself up and you're not satisfied ever with where you currently are. So I want to address that a little bit. As I said, self-help is a very noble undertaking. And if you're somebody who has gotten into self-help recently, or maybe even a long time ago, it's because you have wanted change in your life at one point or another. You were not satisfied with the direction that you were going in. You're not satisfied with where you were at. And so you wanted change. You wanted to change yourself and change the trajectory of your life. Now, here's the trap. I called it the getting there trap. What often happens to people, and every trap that I'm going to tell you is something that I have personally went through myself. The getting there trap is, this is where you are, and this is where you want to be. So this is the ideal, and this is something Carl Jung introduced. The ideal presents a judge. Every ideal is a judge because it opens up the capacity for you to judge yourself where you are now. So if you don't like where you are now, you're judging yourself, you want to get there. That's the ideal. Well, great. You know that you want to become the ideal version of yourself. But this can become a trap when we don't accept where we are now. And accepting where we are now while striving to be over there seems like it's a little bit paradoxical, and it kind of is. But we have to find a happy medium there. And this is where meditation is going to be so helpful, because meditation gives you the capacity to surrender to the present moment and accept what you are and where you are. But just because you accept where you currently are, it doesn't mean that you can't strive to be somewhere greater. The trap is not accepting where you currently are, beating yourself up about it, and constantly striving to get somewhere greater. So that's an important thing to avoid, because that's going to take a big toll on your own peace of mind and your own mental health if you're not in a state of acceptance of where you currently are. Because to not be in a state of acceptance of where you currently are is almost to be resentful of the entire path that has gotten you to where you are. So instead of being resentful about it, we can be grateful for where we are. We can see, even though I want to get to somewhere else, I'm grateful for where I'm at now, and I'm grateful for everything that's gotten me here. Really hard to say if you've had a really troubled past, but I know some people, I personally have not grown up with a lot of trauma, so to speak. I mean, everybody has trauma. It's a matter of big or small. But I know some people very, very close to me who have had some of the most horrific childhoods that you might ever hear. And they are genuinely in a place of peace and acceptance with everything that has happened. And the perspective is that they see it as opportunity for growth. And there's a newfound awareness over the circumstances that have happened. So they don't see it and resent it all. There's a sort of forgiveness that's taken place to their own past and the people involved in it. And that takes time in itself. That's not something that can just happen. That takes healing. But not resenting your past is going to be a very important step in accepting where you are while also being able to strive to be somewhere else. So that's how you're going to go about avoiding the getting there trap. Meditation makes that a lot easier. If you don't have a meditation practice already, that should be an undertaking for you to make that trap more avoidable. Now, the next trap I want to talk about is the facade. Now, this is something that I actually went through for a while and didn't really realize it until I had a bit of an epiphany one day. It kind of hit me all at once. Now, what the facade is let's say you read an entire book end to end in one day. And you think, wow, that was great. I did something productive. And that book had a whole bunch of practices. Let's say that book was about emotional intelligence. And it had a bunch of practices for you to do. Maybe those practices include some reflection on some questions that you can write down in your journal and reflect on. Maybe it had some meditations for you to do. So let's just take those two examples. It had those practices, but you didn't do them. You just focused on reading the book cover to cover. And you might have still, been really inspired while you're reading that book. So it's not like it's a complete throwaway. I mean, it's better than, watching Netflix marathons, right? It's better for your brain. It's better for your mind. And you might very well have retained some of the stuff that you read. But if you are only having the goal of let's get through this book, like let's read this book. Awesome. I feel good about myself. I read this book. Oh, let's watch this self-help YouTuber's video. Wow, awesome. I feel so good about myself for watching that. But you didn't actually do the practices in the book. And if I ask you tomorrow what you learned in that YouTube video that you watched, you don't actually remember what it was even about. And if you do, it takes you a second to be like, oh yeah, it was about this. So the facade is exactly that. It's this feeling that is not actually indicative of reality, that you have made an improvement in some aspect because you read a book or watched a video. But it's a facade. It's not truly indicative of what's happening in reality because the improvement is not there because you have not integrated anything that you have consumed. It's almost like you consumed it and then you shit it all out. You didn't digest anything. So imagine eating food, but then it passes straight through you and you didn't actually absorb any nutrients. You might call that food like a facade, so to speak. It's the same thing with a book. If you're not actually digesting anything and integrating it into your life. And then there's a second level to this where you have to be careful because just because you reflected on something or you did a meditation on something, there's a much higher chance that that's going to be integrated into your life. I mean, even just from the awareness that you are curating and you're building on whatever it was that you reflected on. But I like this notion of learning equals behavior change. So nothing has actually been integrated unless something has changed, unless there's been some action taken out of what it is that you've learned. So be very wary of that one. That is probably the biggest trap of self-help, is that you're feeling like you're being so productive and doing so good. And granted, like I said, reading a book is better than, reading like a nonfiction book and learning some stuff is better than watching a Netflix marathon over some like mindless show that isn't really helpful for you at all. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes if you want to do that, that's great too. But if you're not actually learning anything from these books and integrating them and digesting them, they're not actually serving you in any ways. And the whole productivity that you're under the impression of is a complete facade. So beware of the facade. The third one. This is a big one. This is something that can really, really affect people. I know it affected me, and it still comes and goes in waves sometimes. This is going to take the most time to really get a handle on. This trap is the burnout. You could probably guess by the name what the burnout is all about. The burnout is about overworking. This is a big trap of self-help, and it's really easy to fall into. And it takes, like I said, it takes a while to really get a handle on, because it can feel so good to be doing so much and seeing so many results out of what it is that you're doing too. But if you're not careful with this, and if you don't keep rest and balance as a priority in your life, then your degree of peace and happiness isn't actually going to be where it should, and where you have been working to get it towards with all the work that you've been doing in self-help. And not just self-help, but this burnout trap, it goes for any undertaking that you wish to be successful at. Even if it's not, self-help, even if it's a business that you're working on, you have to be careful with the burnout. Now, sometimes you're going to have a little bit of a lack of balance in your life when you are working hard towards something, and that is okay. If any of you are familiar with David Goggins, I was watching a video of his, and he was talking about how work now, find balance later, and how anything that you want to achieve, you have to become a little bit obsessed with it. And once you achieve that goal, once you produce that thing you were trying to produce, whether it's internal or external, then you can find some balance. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I understand where he's coming from, and that's where I say sometimes there's going to lack balance on a few days. Let's say you might be really motivated to really work hard towards something and put in like 10 hours a day on this one thing that you're working towards, and that's okay. I would say the biggest way to avoid the burnout is to prioritize adequate sleep above all else. That's a non-negotiable for me personally, and it has paid me dividends. And it makes sense, because if you're getting adequate sleep, that's when you're going to be the most productive. So if you're working for, let's just play with numbers for the sake of simplicity, if you're working for 20 hours and you're only sleeping for 4, those 20 hours, you're going to have less of a net production value than you will in 16 hours where you're sleeping for 8. So in the second scenario, you're only working for 16 hours, but you're actually going to be more productive. You are going to produce more. Your production is going to go up compared to the 20 hours where you're only running on 4 hours of sleep. So sleep is a non-negotiable. Also, maintaining balance in other areas of your life. So if you have a bunch of goals that you're working towards, great. And sometimes you might go a little while without seeing your friends, but it is really important to value and prioritize relationships in your life. Now, that might look different for everybody. If you're in a romantic relationship, that might mean you and your partner go out once every 2 weeks, or maybe you don't live together, so it means you see each other a minimum of twice or 3 times a week at least, even if you're really busy. It's a matter of priority. Now, you could be somebody who is skeptical of this, and that's great. I encourage you to be skeptical of everything that you hear in the self-help realm. That could be a whole other trap in itself. So, side note, be skeptical. Find the proof in the pudding when you hear things from, self-help gurus, including myself. So put this to the test. If you think, no, that's bullshit, I can work all my energy towards this one thing and not really have any balance, and I'm not going to find the burnout. Put it to the test. If you don't experience any burnout, if you don't experience any dissatisfaction with the quality of your life, with the lack of balance in other areas of your life, then hey, maybe that works for you. But if you are 99% of people, then you are probably going to fall to the burnout if you're not careful and if you're not maintaining a sense of balance. So a good way to do this is to highlight some goals for yourself that you want to hit, maybe every day, maybe every week, or maybe even at the end of the month. You want to make sure the book is finished. So give yourself some goals. Try your best to accomplish said goals, but hold a big picture goal as the forefront. So if you want to finish a book by the end of the month, so if you're reading 15 pages a day, let's say the book is only 300 pages. So make it a goal to read 15 pages a day, and then a larger goal is to just make sure you read the book in the month. That way, if you miss a day, if you miss 2 days, if you average 1 missed day every week, you're still going to hit your goal. So it gives you a little bit of breathing room. That's my advice on how to avoid the burnout in a very practical way, along with everything else I said about prioritizing rest and balance. So those are the 3 big traps of self-help. A little shout out to the mini 4th one I mentioned of being skeptical. I kind of just thought of that right now, actually, as I was filming this. Had I thought about that before, I might have made a whole separate point of it. But yeah, be skeptical to what it is that you are hearing. Don't just take it for granted. Be open-minded to things, but don't take it for granted. See the proof in the pudding for yourself. What else do I want to say before I wrap this up? Yeah, I guess just to summarize, 4 big pitfalls and how to avoid them. The getting there trap. You need to find balance between being at peace with where you are while still being able to strive for somewhere that you want to be. The second one, avoiding burnout by making sure you find a sense of balance, prioritize rest, and set your goals accordingly so that if you fall a little bit behind, you can still hit those goals. And then, of course, the biggest one, how could I forget? The facade. So make sure that you are actually learning stuff instead of just pretty much wasting your time and, like I said, consuming it just to shit it all out. So don't waste your time. Don't fall into the facade trap. And those are all the biggest traps that I've personally fallen into at one point or another and have developed an awareness over, and how I have gone about not falling into those moving forward. I hope you can find some value from that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a like. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Have you ever fallen victim to any of these traps? Maybe some different traps have plagued your self-development a little bit. Tell me about that. I'm curious. And absolutely, self-help is not bullshit. Any video you see like that, they're probably going to tell you a lot of things similar to what I said. The whole self-help is bullshit narrative is one of either two things. It's clickbait or it's entirely misinformed. As I said before, the notion of telling people that self-help is a trap is in itself grounded in self-help. You're trying to help people by telling them that. So that's kind of self-explanatory. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.